Howdy, this is Lemmy with Revzilla, coming at you with a little bit of insight on Indian's new 116-inch Thunderstroke engine. So Indian just announced that a 116-inch variant of their Thunderstroke motor is going to be joining their lineup in select models. Now this slots in really nicely against Harley's Milwaukee Eights in both the 107 and 114-inch variants, but the 111 and the 116 are actually pretty different. I wanted to talk about them for just a moment. If you happen to be a casual V-twin shopper, you may just say, hey, these are huge, understressed, big air-cooled lumps, but there really are some differences, I think, that speak a little bit to the design philosophies between both companies. So let's take the Milwaukee 8 for just a moment. The 107 and the 114 differ in a couple of important ways. The 114 is derived from the 107, but it has more bore as well as more stroke. In order to give it a little bit more kick, too, Harley also raised the compression ratio by half a point. Now, if we compare this, of course, to the Thunderstroke 116, well, that's a different kettle of fish. The 116 was derived from the 111, however, it's all through bore, not stroke. And to make more power, Indian also bumped up the compression ratio not half a point, but 1.5 points. Pretty considerable if you ask me. Now I mention this because generally speaking, increasing the size of a motor via bore is the easy way to do it. Stroke is a little bit more difficult when you're doing it after the fact because it requires much more engine assembly and teardown. So you may be saying, well, then the Harley must be the superior option here. Hold your horses for a second. I'm not sure that I agree with that. I think a big part of the reason that Indian went with an all-bore increase here is simply because that was their only option. Indian's just out of room for stroke on that motor. There's been no stroker kit made for that thing that I'm even aware of. Frankly, the only way to make it bigger is going to be to increase the bore. Now previously, Lloyd's had offered a 121-inch kit for those. However, that kit wasn't so hot in my mind simply because the cases do require machining. It means you can't just slam a big bore kit necessarily onto it. You've got to actually break down the whole motor and machine your cases. It means you're doing the lower end. Now I bring this up because for most mechanics and even most DIY folks, getting into the lower end is a little bit hairy. Now, of course, Indian didn't jump all the way up to 121 because they didn't want people to have to do that. That's where the 116 kit that they previously offered came in. You could do a 116 kit without having to machine the cases, top end only. Now, with this 116 motor, you're basically getting a factory installed 116-inch big bore kit. So we'll step back to Harley-Davidson for just a moment. If you happen to have that 114 motor, you can take that thing out pretty big. I've seen big bore kits that bolt right on at 128 inches. So you may say, well, that sounds like the better deal. I can make it bigger. Hold on just a second. Indian, of course, made this thing as big as they could right off the starting line, and then realized later people wanted them larger, and they had to scratch their head and figure out exactly how to make that engine bigger. Compare this, of course, with Harley-Davidson, who probably knew that they were going to be offering larger variants of this down the road. Take a look back at the twin cam. That was an 88, a 96, a 103, a 110, and eventually there was even a non-street legal 120R motor that came out. So you may say to yourself, well, hang on a second, why doesn't Harley just deliver the big motor up front? I think we all know the answer to that question. Now, that having been said, I don't think one is necessarily better than the other. I think one is going to be better for some riders and wrenches than another. Let me explain. If you're the type of rider who doesn't want a wrench on your bike, a 116 Indian is probably going to be to your liking. It's basically the most hot-rodded version of that engine that you can put your hands on that's still going to be reliable. Now, of course, if you're the type who likes to tinker in the garage, well, the Harley may appeal to you for two reasons. First, the aftermarket is going to be much stronger. Secondly, like I said, they left lots of room on the table. You can go right to 128 inches without even pulling apart your bottom end. If you're willing to do that, you can probably take the stroke a little bit further as well. So I thought it was just interesting because even though these engines do appear to be very similar to one another, it kind of does give you a little glimpse into the minds of the designers and the engineers who put these power plants together. Let me know what you think about both of these engines down there in the comments section. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Lem. I'm out of here.